Good morning. It's Wednesday, and the authenticity of this morning is I just finally made an espresso with my Nespresso maker. It's so lame, that Nespresso maker. But it's cheaper than going to the coffee shop. And now I have to begin acting like I'm on a budget because I have been partying hard like I'm not on a budget here in Amsterdam. And I've been enjoying myself. It's been a lot of fun. But I can't do that. That's not acceptable behavior, man. It's been a little too just loosey goosey. Actually, most of the expenditure that I'm upset about is on booze. I've been drinking more than I want to be. And I should probably calm that down a little before I go to India. Then on top of that, I've been spending on food a little bit, not much, and marijuana. Why is the legalization of marijuana important? It's not for recreational reasons that we discuss it. One of the things is that it's a plant that had been in use for centuries by everyone before it was demonized and the prohibition began in the last half century, authored almost entirely by authoritative governments who wanted a method for controlling populations. Why is marijuana important? Well, that's an interesting question. It has healing properties. It allows a lot of people to feel better. It also is a plant that just grows. It can be used for all kinds of things, and it has been used in the past for all kinds of things, from rope to hemp to clothing to, all sorts of things. And it has healing properties that people have not even explored yet because the medical association has demonized it so effectively during the Prohibition era that we weren't even allowed to properly study it. And that's not good. It took us 25 years in California to finally get the legalization of marijuana. When I say us, I mean that because, I went out with petitions in California with each of those constitutional initiatives that we tried to pass. And I went out with normal, and asked people for signatures. And I went out and tried to convince people of the righteousness of this. In California, there were a lot of reasons why. I mean, one of them was the demonization of black and brown people using marijuana. And the poor, not just black and brown, but using marijuana as a means of policing, right? I mean, so many people had their possessions taken away. And so many people were jailed and fined and so on for marijuana charges for decades. It was a means of control. Scheduling it the way it was scheduled wasn't just a prohibition of something that should not have been prohibited, but it was a means of control for authoritative governments. And that part of it has to end. And unfortunately, that's the part of it that still survives very actively in a lot of other places. So when I'm going from Amsterdam to the next place, it's not going to be like this. When I came from California to here, I didn't lose anything. In fact, it was the exact feeling of liberation I have about being able to go somewhere, buy some marijuana, and consume it. In the end, it was no loss for me. I don't do cocaine, I don't do heroin, I don't do opium, I don't do pills, I don't do ketamine, I don't do ecstasy, I don't do any of the other, quote, recreational drugs. And I don't consider marijuana a recreational drug. In the way that coffee would be a recreational drug to people who drink coffee every single day, then marijuana is a recreational drug. And coffee clearly is not a recreational drug, right? Caffeine is something we all just embark upon and accept because the coffee houses of the eras past have made it an acceptable social element. The beauty of having the coffee houses here of marijuana are that there's an attempt to do that. The sad part of that is you have a culture, a lot of it is a youth-driven culture, that is, they're unruly. They don't treat it with the respect that it deserves. They misbehave, quite frankly. And this is not something that people want. And marijuana does loosen the mind. It does allow you a certain amount of liberated thought. But it also allows you to consider yourself, more clearly, I believe. I think that's what makes it pleasant for me. Maybe it makes me second guess too much. It's possible. Maybe it's not good for me in some ways. That's possible. But in the long run, I get way more from enjoying marijuana than I do from anything else, any other imbibing. If I could quit booze, I would, if I'm quite frank with you. It's something I've attempted to do for some time, and I've struggled with it. If anything, booze is much harder to quit. Marijuana is a great pleasure, a pleasure that I need to maintain my sanity in a world that has gone awry, in my opinion. So that's what I use it for. It keeps me steady. It keeps me level. It doesn't let me go manic, if you will, right? It keeps me from going over the top. Yet it also allows me to enjoy things, as that fellow said in that movie one time. It makes everything better. It makes going to the movies better. It makes this meal better. It makes sex better. It makes everything better. One finds oneself when you're high, in my opinion, and it's not for everybody. I've said for years, it's not for everybody, okay? I'm not pushing it on anyone. I'm just letting you know it is for me.